Hi, what's up? It's Esper, and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Esper. I make stuff, usually videos, sometimes paintings, other times stickers. I really want to make pins. I really want to have a pin club. Anyway, this is my Peachtober Day 2 video, which I am so very sorry that I'm getting to you late. But I had to fix my sleep schedule because the first day of October, I decided to maybe just drink a lot of caffeine. Yeah, I drank a lot of caffeine and I'm not used to it because I don't drink coffee. I didn't even drink coffee. I drank matcha. So I had to go fixing my sleep schedule, which I did, and it was great. I slept in the middle of the day, and it was good that I nipped that in the bud because I used to have problems with insomnia. Now you know entirely too much about me, and we can connect. That's how that works, right? I'm going to stop talking now and actually get to the video. So the prompt for today is raccoon, and I never draw raccoons, so this was a stretch for me and out of my comfort zone, and I really like that. So now let's get to the actual portion of the video that everybody is here for, which is my thoughts on the Sennelier 12 tube watercolor set. I made notes because this is like the third time I'm recording this video, and I didn't want to just like waste your time because your time's important. All right, don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. If they tell you that your time is not important, send them to me. I'll fuck them up. All right, that was really aggressive. I'm sorry. Anyway, let's get started. I don't know why I clapped right in front of the mic. I'm so sorry. All right, the price. When I bought this set, it was $100. Link up in the cards for my initial impressions if you haven't already watched. And I would say, honestly, that this is still worth the $100 I paid for it. The price has since gone down to about $80-ish, and then plus tax, I'd imagine that's like $90. Still 100% worth it, IMO. The only thing that I would say is that if you already have a watercolor set, I would listen to the rest of the video to see if this is the set for you, because there are some, I wouldn't say quirks, but there are some things that I really like about this set that you might not like as a watercolor artist. So just, you know, chill, listen for a little bit to see if those things are things that you like or you dislike, because everybody has their preferences. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the pigmentation of this set. Personally, I find the pigmentation to be absolutely perfect. I can dilute it really, really well, and I like to paint in a lot of layers, as you will see in this video. Layers are my jam. They're so good. I love painting in layers. It looks so good when you're done. It's also so satisfying while you're painting. Layers are amazing. And some people might not like that. You might not like that. You know, if you don't like painting in a lot of layers, you could paint with this watercolor set with less of a dilution, but I can't personally speak on how well that works. I watched Arlie Bean's video on these, and she did say she found these to be less pigmented than her other watercolors, and I really like that. So if you personally like super vibrant, in your face colors that you're going to get with, you know, less layers, then this might not be the set for you. The next thing I want to talk about is bleeding. So I like to do a lot of bleeding in my work, and two things. This is a really good watercolor if you want to bleed really light colors into a very wet area. But if you want to bleed darker colors into your artwork and have it be more of like a pop of color, that I have had trouble with. I don't know if it's my technique. I don't know if it's something that I just need to figure out how to do, but darker colors I have struggled to bleed, and they kind of just sit on the paper. And I don't know if that's the same case with other watercolors, because this is my first tube watercolor. I was using palettes, pans before this, so you know, if you have more experience with watercolors, let me know. But that is the one thing I've had difficulty with, is bleeding darker, more vibrant colors into like different wetter areas. So maybe I just need to find a more efficient way to do it. But listen, it works really well if you're just doing light washes and bleeding them into each other. That works fantastically, but it doesn't work as well, I've noticed, if I'm trying to get like a darker, more like intense color. So keep that in mind. The next thing I want to talk about is the feel of this watercolor. I know that's very nebulous, and that's not really something that you're like, the feel of this watercolor, exquisite. I make really weird voices sometimes, so just bear with me here. And the feel of this watercolor is fantastic. Just a heads up, any vegan watchers out there, this isn't a vegan watercolor. This does have honey as, I think, one of its base ingredients. So if you don't like that, then I wanted to give you the heads up. But this watercolor feels so smooth. Just mixing it in the palette feels so incredibly great. The way that this watercolor just sits on your brush, on the palette, it is a really great painting experience, in my opinion. And I don't think I could ever go back to pan watercolors again, unless it's like a travel set or something like that, just because having these watercolors have just made everything much easier, and I'm not scraping pans with my paintbrush. As I said that, I was like, that sounds really awful and sounds like nothing that anybody ever does. But yeah, clearly I am not a seasoned artist, but I like what I do. Anyway, the next thing I wanted to talk about is re-wetting. So there are tube watercolors out there that don't re-wet. Heads up, just so you know, there are tube watercolors that do not re-wet. I believe I was watching an Emily Artful video, and the Arteza watercolors do not re-wet. And you gotta make sure, if you're the type of person to mix more than you need, I'm looking at me, that you get a watercolor that re-wets amazingly. And this does. Re-wetting with this watercolor, you get the same feel and the same consistency that you would if you had just mixed it right out of the tube. It's actually kind of amazing. I have been using this palette of watercolors for the past 3 days, and I have let it dry each and every single time, and I re-wet it when I start my stream, and it is just as great to use as if I had just poured it out of the tube. Quite remarkable. Would recommend. Great quality. So mixing these watercolors is generally very great. I really love the way that I can get pretty much every color that I want out of this set. The one complaint I have, though, is that I can't seem to mix purples that well. Maybe that's just me, but mixing purples has kind of been meh. Like, I feel like I see it separate a lot. And don't get me wrong, the purples I do mix come out fine. But I had a lot of trouble for some reason mixing the purple that I used for these paintings. And I don't know if that was a thing because of this set or because purples are just hard to mix. I don't think purples are hard to mix, but sometimes you just get like separation. I got a little bit of muddiness when I mixed my initial purple, but I'm not a color mixing expert. The thing I might do honestly is get 2 convenience colors, and that would be a warm gray and a convenience purple, because I use a lot of purple in my artwork. I love purple, and I think it's great for shading, great for gradients and backgrounds, and it is just such a nice color to have. I may just get myself a convenience purple. So this is like a purely me thing. I'm not saying this as like an objective fact that like these like purples are just difficult to mix. I genuinely think it might just be me, but I haven't struggled really that much with mixing the purples. It just so happened to like once in a while it'll come out muddy and I don't know what I did. But you know, sometimes that just happens, right? I'm not the only one. But anyway, I wanted to kind of give some thoughts on these watercolors being professional watercolors. So professional watercolors, you really benefit from using them if you're making artwork to last. These are light fast. They're supposed to last for a very long time. They shouldn't be affected by UV or anything like that, in addition to all of the other attributes that I mentioned, right? So these watercolors are absolutely fantastic if you are looking for something to make your traditional work last longer. And that is a very important thing for a lot of watercolor artists who, you know, keep their work in display or whatever else, or they're selling their physical originals. You know, that is very important. But I just want to say that you don't need the most expensive watercolors to excel at the medium. There are obviously really, really good upsides to having these watercolors that I mentioned throughout my whole video. I want to give this watercolor a glowing review, and I think that if you are considering these watercolors and you have the money for them and you liked all of the things that I mentioned in this video, you should absolutely buy them. But I also wanted to give the caveat to any newer artists out there that you don't need very expensive watercolors to get started. I started my watercolor journey with $13 watercolors. They're linked down in the description below. And I was so broke at that time that I hunted for deals so that I can get like $2-3 off. And it was a really good set of watercolors that have carried me throughout the years. The only reason why I ended up upgrading from those watercolors is, one, because I couldn't mix grays without them getting really, really grainy in like a not good way. And two, I was starting to basically like not scrape the bottom because they're not thoroughly done yet, but there are a lot more colors that I used over the others, and I wasn't going to replace a single pan of a student grade watercolor. I think that at that point I had proven to myself that I would continue watercoloring for this $100 set to be worth it for me. And I didn't upgrade until I knew that I was going to do that. And if it's the case that you know that watercolor is your medium, absolutely 100% go for it, because these are great watercolors. Would recommend. But if you're just starting out, it's good to get a student grade set. It's good to get, you know, slightly worse paper, but I would have to say that, you know, just get decent paper. Like mixed media is okay. Canton's watercolor paper is actually decent, but for Peachtober, I actually ended up buying Arch's hot press watercolor paper. So I did a lot of upgrades for my work, but like I said, I have been, you know, watercoloring on and off, not thoroughly completely like invested for the past year and a half. But since I have sought out to do a lot more art, I've ended up doing a lot more watercolors, and these have been more and more worth it. And the last thing I want to say is that these tubes are 10 milliliters, I believe. Let me check. I have them like right on hand because I just did my third day painting. Yeah, 10 milliliters. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for watercolors, 10 milliliters is actually a lot of watercolor. These should last you an incredibly long time. So if you are looking for watercolors, these will last you quite a while. And I didn't realize that the video was only 16 minutes long. So yeah, if you have any questions, put them down in the description below. I'll do my best to answer it. And yeah, closing thoughts, would recommend. And they are great watercolors and they'll last you a very long time. Anyway, if you like this video, click the like button and subscribe for more content and daily videos during October, and weekly videos the rest of the year because I'm very busy. Anyway, you guys are awesome. I have to now edit the video to be a little bit longer. Goodbye.